Hi, my name is Dennis Afewu, and this is my final evaluation for my FMP. So, in my FMP folder, I had context, evaluation and reflection, planning and production, practical skills, presentation, problem solving, and research. To begin with, in my context folder, I had a brief, a pitch, um, the presentation, the FMP's final schedule, um, the pitch write up, the proposals, two actually, and one storyline. So in my pitch, I just went into detail about my idea, what I wanted to do, um, the hooks and themes, the demographics and psychographics, primary research, target market, um, rec reports, so like the locations that I wanted to film in, secondary research, and the contributors themselves. I feel like finding out about the contributors themselves, it helped develop the idea more because we could base our characters, like character profiles, around the actual contributors themselves, so that would make it easier for them to talk about talk and act within the scripts. Um, with my qualitative data, I use Google Trends to find out information about things related to my storyline. So, for example, drill music, teen pregnancies, violence, and justice. I created a mood board as part of my visual research to give my clients and my contributors an idea on what I'm trying to base my FMP around. Um, yeah, I have examples of equipment that I used throughout the shoot, and I created a budget, even though it wasn't on the same basis of my FMP. I still included things such as the cost for a director, a producer, and a scriptwriter, as it would help show the reality of actual filmmaking. In order to keep my work balanced and organized, I used a schedule and I filled it out at the start of the course to make sure that I could do everything in order and carry the workflow. I used feedback from Google Forms, my tutors, and professional cinematographers such as Simon Orks. Okay, moving into my script, I feel like my script was a really interesting one because we had two parts of the idea, and the script changed a lot as we went through it. Because at first, we had the story was that a girl meets a boy, and they fall in love, and because of gang violence in the area, he dies, and that kind of motivates her after she, like, I guess, mourns. She becomes a stronger person and tries to keep his friends away from, I guess, drug dealing, gang violence, and so on. Okay. In my evaluation, I done a lot of research in terms of my reflective journal, and I made sure I did loads of visual representations of my work just to make it clear to everyone what I was doing. Because I feel like when your reflective journal lacks information such as visuals, it makes it really hard for people to understand what you're talking about. So I made sure I included examples of my work each time I filmed. So here you can see there's some of the locations that we use when we're filming. Um, we have examples of pre-production, post-production. We have examples of questionnaires that we've done. And let me go down to here. So yeah, this is a good example. So we made an animatic and spoke about what we would do in the storyline behind it, just to give us and the contributors a brief understanding of what we're doing. In planning production, I created a checklist to make sure I knew all the things that I needed to do. Although all of these things are now filled out and I've done them, they have still been left because I created a new one, and it was all on my research report. So yeah, that's that. With my storyboard, I made a, I guess, like, it followed the storyline, not exactly how you thought it would go, but similar. So I got shots from Google and I used them to kind of annotate and kind of describe what was going on, but visually. So you can see here, Kiana nervously waits in the waiting room. Um, then it cuts to another scene of the girls in the room talking about what happened in the past, a phone call from Emmanuel, and a close-up of the phone, which was seen in the actual footage. I'll come to that later. With my paperwork, I made sure that I got actor release forms so that I made it clear and I had consent from the actors that they would be acting and they knew exactly what they were doing when they were filming. I made a budget template, which you saw. Yeah, so this is everything that I included. I also done call sheets so that we knew what locations we were filming in, and for each of the actors to have a clear understanding of where the place was, the time that they would get there, and who they would come with. I also done character profiles in order to give the actors an understanding of who they are, what they do, and how they'll behave in the scene. So, for example, Devan is age 17, born in London. He's 5'11". He's black. He has black hair, brown eyes. He he's in a relationship, which he was. He's a student and he sells drugs, so I put intent to supply, possession of knives. His friend is Emmanuel and he takes part in gang associations and affiliations. Okay. So with the contact with contributors, I focused on just getting the phone numbers, emails, and if they had any allergies at all, just in case, just so that if anything went wrong, we'd be able to help them on the day of the shoot. I created a location recce to make sure I understood what was available in the area, what could be dangerous in the area, and how much time we'd have to film. So here you can see I filled out everything: safety issues, possible shots, lighting, noise, and it just really helped give me an idea on like the test shots I could get before I go to shoot. So yeah. I also done a risk assessment. This helped me just understand what I needed to include and what I needed to stay away from when filming in the area. So I put the dates down so we all knew what days we were filming, the area we were filming in, and the numbers so that people would be in contact with us. Before the day of the shoot, every single one of our actors had one of these sheets so that they knew what could be dangerous and what they should stay away from. So I filled out everything here, and below I went into detail about exactly what could be the issues. So for example, gas can be extremely severe and can be very dangerous if it fills a room because it's flammable and some gases cannot be smelt, seen, or tasted. Finally, in planning production, I made a shot list to give me, as a cameraman, an idea on the shots that I would want to get in each scene. This just made it easier and made it more organized, and less time was wasted when we were filming because of this. In my practical skills, I had a range of auditions and visual things that we done in the day. For example, we had auditions here. So I won't play the full thing. We had auditions which helped give us an understanding of how the actors will behave and if they were good for the scene. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I'll just show you different shots. Okay. We also had production testing. This just gave us an idea on what we could do when we were filming. It gave us an idea of what equipment we could use, how we would use it, and yeah. We also done mic testing. So here you can see that we were testing the lapel mics before the shoot just to see if there were any problems and different ways we could use them. So here in this scene, I have wrapped a scarf around my neck to hide the lapel mic, also giving it wind protection and making it less, I guess, less tinny on my voice because it was so close to my mouth and so close to my chest. We also have examples of rough edits here. So for the introduction, this was one of the rough edits I used. Now I feel like this could have been changed because there's not enough shots of the actual characters themselves. It really should just shows the environment that the um, the story is set in, I guess. So I guess that's one shot of the actor, but you can't really see them. I feel like close up shots would be effective because it would make it clear to the audience who is actually acting within the story. And some of the shots, for example, this one, they're not really relevant because it's really set in an urban-based location. So like houses and I guess not the slums but the suburbs, I guess. Here are some examples of test shots. So for example, this shot here is the fake blood that our production team created with red hair dye and Vaseline. This is one of the post-production shots where Emmanuel, the actor, was on the phone. This is a shot where Maya sees her boyfriend bleeding out on the floor. And this is another shot when all three of the actors were playing together as a flashback. Here I have examples of my presentation, so my final presentation for my pitch. Now with problem solving, I went into a lot of detail about things that could go wrong just because I knew this was the main thing that could really affect how my filming turns out. So in terms of equipment, I spoke about equipment being lost, how equipment could be damaged by weather conditions, so we'd have to plan it in advance, then find out how the weather's going to be before the shoot. I also went into detail about the contributors and how they may be unavailable to shoot on the day, so we'd have to think prior to the actual day of the shoot and try to prevent them from cancelling or being unavailable on the day. For storage, we looked at the limitations of putting equipment in a car, storage temperatures, storage space, SD cards, and hard drives. So, for example, a hard drive, if we wanted to put footage somewhere, we would probably buy at least a 2 terabyte hard drive just because of how large the footage is at 60 frames per second. Okay. In terms of my research, I have primary research, production research, secondary research, and visual research with my research report at the bottom. In my primary research, I have examples of contextual research, so the ideas that I could use to prep me, so social methods, political methods, settings, tracking shots, increase awareness. These are all based around my idea, so I would have to find out the history of the genre, so I guess knife crime, gang relations. I had to get a realistic outlook, so camera angles, explanations from people who have been in gangs, camera movements as well also relate to that, and actual problems within the situation are young adults and knife crimes. This is another example of like planning and contextual research where we thought about why we're doing it, what we're doing it for, the themes, and how it would affect our work. So time consuming, diverse, it's to inform people, there's tragedy, justice and redemption, some put love and sacrifice as well. Now with location test shots, as you saw in the recce report, we have 4 locations. Woodbury Down is a shop quite close to this location, but it's where the actors would first meet, so to build an establishment shot, I guess. This is a park where Devan and Maya will be walking through, and this is the bedroom where Maya will be working in. Now, because I wanted to get research firsthand, I decided to create a questionnaire based around my short film and the theme that I had. So this right here, MYM Media, the film's called Deep It. It's a short film, roughly about 15 minutes, and I chose this because it was short, so it means that the audience wouldn't get bored of, the respondents wouldn't get bored of watching the video. And it's quite interesting as well because it talks about real life situations that people run into every day. I also included information about how it's not a test, so the respondents won't feel uncomfortable answering questions. and their respondents are also kept anonymous. I put roughly about 12 questions here. Yeah, 12 questions. And so an example of one is, what would you rate this film out of 5? Why do you think what do you think the film is trying to tell you as a viewer? Is it educational in any way? What is it based around? Roughly how many movies do you watch per month? What's your favorite genre of film? What video streaming platform do you use most often? And this was a really good one because it allowed me to find out what my target audience tends to use mostly, and this was Netflix. So I feel like promoting my work on Netflix would probably be the best option for me. Another thing is that with asking them about what the short film is trying to tell them as a viewer will give me an idea of how well the story did in actually giving a perspective of the London lifestyle. Also finding out where my target audience live in will help, because it will help me to relate the story more to them if they live in London. Okay. I done another survey to find out more about my target audience. So putting an email address down just so that I could collect their contacts. So if I wanted to ask them in the future to do more, I would have access to them. Finding out their ethnicity, gender, and age was effective because it allowed me to find out the statistics, and in a small scale, it gave me a chance to find out what type of people are interested in what I'm trying to film. Finding out the education level was interesting because it was mostly based around secondary and college students and a few university students. I feel like this helps me because it gives you an idea of the age range again that is interested in what I'm filming. I got 24 responses, and let me show you some of the responses. Yeah, some of the responses were kind of interesting because I guess the statistics were incorrect. The way I laid it out was incorrect, so it didn't come out exactly how I wanted. But an example is, what is the gender? And here I got 58.3% were female and 41.7 were males. So I feel like this just tells me that I didn't get enough. Respondents. I should have tried to branch out to more people, but again, I feel like it will help me. It will give me an idea on who would be more interested, and I feel like because the story was based around a female role, more females were interested. The age range here was 15 to 20. That was the highest, most dominant age range. The second highest was 32 plus, surprisingly. So this means that parents would be quite interested in it. The lowest was 27 to 31. And yep, that's what information I have to give. Surprisingly, well, not really surprisingly, the highest count for places my target audience lived in was London, and this was most likely because all the people I shared it out to maybe lived in London, I guess. The education level was mostly college students, which was a whole 50%. But there was also university students which was 29.2%, and people that were working was 20.8%. Surprisingly, the psychographic groups that most people are in was aspirers, and I thought it would be more mainstream, but mainstream seems to be the lowest out of all things. And I feel like this is because a lot of youths want to be like the people they see on TV. Okay. Finally, my research report. Within my research report, I included, I feel like the research report was effective because it allowed me to, methodically lay out my work and go through things step by step. So here you can see all of these are green, and this is because I have ticked them as completed, and I've gotten feedback on each of them. So I done surveys, questionnaires, focus groups, contacts with experts, independent learning tutorials, notebook research, and auditions in primary research, which you saw. For example, the audition with the green screen. Now these are red because this is what I'm doing now, but they will soon be complete. In my research report, I made sure I went in detail about what I had learned throughout the course, as well as what understanding I had gained about certain topics such as target audience. The focus groups really helped out because it gave me a chance to find out about what people really find interesting, and it really helped to mold my story. I made sure I took down notepads so that I could keep the information and include it in my work when I went home. Getting in contact with this cinematographer in particular was really effective because he shot two of the similar products that I chose, which was surprising, and I didn't know this myself at the time, but when I found out, it was really, like, I guess, eye-opening, because I was able to meet up with him and speak to him about what I'd learned and what I'd understood. The independent learning tutorials really helped me think about what I could change and how I could use the cameras, and it also gave me an idea on how I could appeal more to my audience through camera movement and camera angles. The secondary research gave me an idea on what could be changed as a The secondary research gave me an idea on what I could change in terms of the storyline, and it allowed me to include like factual information about knife crime and drug dealing. For example, county lines is moving drugs across the country, I guess. So from one area to another area, and it is quite often done now, but I feel like police are trying to crack down on that, and that's what I wanted to talk about within my story. With the contextual research, I got news coverage from Sky, and I spoke about I took bits of information about gang violence in the last 7 years, and used this to back up the evidence that I found and include it in my work, in my actual storyline. Because at the start, there is a scene where Maya is watching news coverage of stabbings in London. With my target audience, I really did try to focus on demographics and psychographics and go into a lot of detail about them. That's why I used the spider diagrams to kind of give me a brief idea on what I did. There was more research from the pitch about the target market and how it appealed to me and how I would use this. With my commissioning process, I used rain dance festivals because I feel like this was the closest to me and probably most effective because it was quite cheap. With my trends and surveys for secondary research, I used another person's survey and looked at their responses and related it to mine. Script research was interesting because it allowed me to kind of focus on how I could improve my script. Even though it was quite good, there were still things that could have been improved on. Looking at a professional script, it was really interesting to see that they didn't really use, some people's scripts didn't really use parenthetics and actions, just dialogue. For the reviews, I feel like it gave me a chance to look at videos from my perspective as well as the audience's and critiques. The online forums was interesting because it gave me a chance to speak to actual cinematographers through online social media, and it was good because I actually found out a better way to get more interesting shots inside as well as outside, and I feel like it gave me a way to it gave me backup in terms of feedback. Like if I needed to find out something, I could type to them and I could get a response in a day, which is really good. Experimenting was really good as well because it gave me a chance to practice the camera angles that I wanted to do when we were doing the noir film, and it really gave me a chance to see how shots would come out in post-production. With visual research, I feel like this gave me a chance to really think about how things would look, for example, typography, I didn't really have an idea for what I wanted to do at the time, but once I reached, I guess, a quarter of the way in, I had an idea, and getting feedback from Sonia was really good as well. Here are more examples of influential directors that I've worked with and the actual actors themselves in Simon Orks's films. Similar products really gave me a chance to think about what I could change, what I could improve, and how I could base my storyline. Because at the start, I didn't really have an idea on what I wanted to film. I just knew that I wanted it to be based about an urban drama, and this made it kind of like I wasn't really sure. I was just doing it because I had an idea and I had a hunch, I guess. So yeah, looking at photographs and artwork, I really went into detail about typography and how they've styled it. For example, here in Kidulthood, you can see that the I is in lowercase as well as here. The D is lowercase. And I feel like it's just a trademark style they have. So I wanted to include this in my work, but I realized that it would seem like copyright. So I kept my font design very different to this. Yeah. For my production research, it just includes my risk assessment and my video budget. And yeah, I made sure I included all my bibliographies and footnotes in Harvard referencing because that was the reference we use. So there's a lot of information here, but I did make sure that it was clear that I did reference it just so that I had backup if people wanted to look at where I got it from. Thank you for listening to my presentation, and yeah.